Devontae Adams is back. We know the cheat code that is in the red zone, and J.C. Horn can only cover one of them. Drink some pickle juice, get some good sleep. It's coming.
Obviously pickle juice, because that is how you preserve your hydration.
When you sweat, you lose salt, right? We lose salt when you sweat. You can't always replace it with water. It helps you retain the water better. You cramp less.
Also good for hangovers.
And now NFL IQ with Cynthia Frelund and Logan Ryan.
Welcome to the Wild Card Weekend edition of NFL IQ. I'm Cynthia Frelund here with two of my good friends. We're back. The trifecta is back. We have Zack Martin here today. And I shouldn't have started the show because we have a guy who got to call a legendary moment in the NFL in just how many seasons is this broadcasting for you? Like half a minute broadcasting, Logan.
Yeah.
Logan, take it away. Tell us everything. But of course, first, subscribe, like, comment, all of the things so you never miss an episode of NFL IQ. But Logan, you were on the call. Myles Garrett, he did it. Tell us everything.
Yeah, right place, right time, I guess. You know, I'm starting my broadcasting career. I get assigned to this game, which probably doesn't look like a great game on paper. The Bengals-Browns, with neither of them with a lot to play for. But fortunately for me and fortunately for us at home, Myles Garrett is on an epic sack race that hasn't been a record, that has not been beat since in a quarter century, Michael Strahan back in the early 2000s. And, you know, I went back and watched all the record-breaking sack plays to see how they called it, because I have to do it justice, right? Like, this clip could last for another 25 years. Zack, you know how hard it is to break, records that stand 20-plus years in the NFL. 17 games or not, for it to stand that long shows you how hard it is. And Zack's offensive lineman, so he knows, I guess, how hard it is, stop people from getting sacks and whatnot. But it was true keep away from Myles Garrett the last few weeks. I mean, he was on pace to get 25 sacks. Say whatever you want, but Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers took him out the game by having the quickest get-off of releasing the ball, snap the throw time that Aaron Rodgers had in the entire season. Well, Joe Burrow did the same thing. For 3/4 of that game, Joe Burrow was releasing the ball quicker than he ever has. They had 2 or 3 people on Myles Garrett every single play, and he was rarely singled up. They ran the ball at him to tire him out. So they did everything they could to neutralize him and to try to play good football. And although Myles Garrett didn't get the sack in the first 3 quarters, the Browns defense outscored the Bengals offense. They had 2 defensive touchdowns, and they were winning 14-12. So whatever the Bengals were doing, it wasn't working. Eventually in the 4th quarter, he got a one-on-one snap. And I sat down with Myles Garrett, the night before for the production meeting. And what can I ask the guy who hasn't been asked all year at every production meeting about the sack, what it means to you? We all know the questions you get asked in those production meetings, Zack. They can be pretty repetitive. But I just said to him, I asked him, so if I'm a young pass rusher, if I'm a high school kid, if I'm a little league kid, and I'm trying to get a sack, what's the most important thing I can start practicing now? Like, if you had to teach how to get a sack, he said it all comes down to the get off. It all comes down to get off. We all have different moves. We all have different bags. We all have swipe, rip, bull, power, long arm. But all great pass rushers have a great get off. And on that snap, on that sack, was the quickest get off of the season of any pass rusher. He sacked Joe Burrow in 2.8 seconds. That is very hard to beat a man, I'm assuming, Zack, in less than 2 seconds and get a sack. So he got a one-on-one. He had the best get off of his season. He got his 23rd sack. Legendary Tom McCarthy, who's a Phillies play-by-play guy, has been in this business 30-plus years, nailed the call. That's his job to nail the call. The only word I came up with was inevitable, because it was inevitable that he was going to get this record. He was on pace to do it. He's such a good guy when you talk to him. He has so much humility about him, how his parents raised him. He had his family in the stands. So it was inevitable. It was deserving that Myles Garrett did it. And I hear a lot of people saying, well, he did it in 17 games. Well, when you play for the Cleveland Browns, you only win 4 games. The other team doesn't throw the ball a lot because they're always winning. So he actually did it in the fewest pass rush attempts that anyone's ever done it in. He has fewer pass rush attempts than Michael Strahan, who did it in 16 games. He has fewer pass rush attempts than TJ Watt did it in, when TJ Watt only played 15 games in his season of a 17-game season. So you can debunk both those theories because Myles Garrett did it in fewer attempts because teams run the ball more on the Browns. I'm sure he faced much more double and triple teams because he doesn't have a great pass rusher across from him like Alex Highsmith or like Michael Strahan had on those Giants D-line. I compare it to Barry Bonds. I know Barry Bonds was on steroids in that era, but Barry Bonds was hitting tons of home runs. He also was the most walked player in the MLB. That's Myles Garrett. He broke a record with the fewest attempts to even do it. So that's how I can simulate the dominance of the season. I'm happy that he did it, and I'm happy on the call. So it was pretty cool. It was honestly a crazy, surreal moment.
Yeah, you talk about the I got a couple things that like I think make it
Yeah.
so impressive. But you talk about get off, and just for people at home, like as an offensive lineman, you have a plan before every snap, and the plan is to beat O-line coaches say beat the guy to the spot, right? So my job as an offensive tackle, I got to get out of my set and beat the defensive tackle to that spot before we start going at it. So when you get a get off like that, your plan is out the window from the jump of the snap. You're playing catch up from the exact snap moment the snap goes off. So it's a bad feeling getting beat off the snap because you're off balance, and then you got this guy who's got all the moves in the world coming at you. But I think the two most important things, and you really kind of hit them, but I've been in these game plan meetings before for elite defensive linemen, and I can tell you that's all they're talking about. They're talking about how do we stop 95. Like you said, Cleveland's got good guys up front, but they got no one else that you're really game planning against. So their entire protection plan that entire week is on 95 and how to stop 95. We saw it the last couple of weeks, obviously Pittsburgh and Cincy doing everything they can. And then like you said, I think the most impressive thing is that he just doesn't get the bats at the plate. I mean, they're not in leads at the end of the game. They're not they're not Mahomes back in the day when they're up 20 in the fourth quarter and Chris Jones is going off. And so that alone, I think that alone is the most impressive part of the.
And Zach, I just want to follow. I think we could take 10 minutes to talk about this record, but there was about 3 or 4 false starts and offsides because they
Yeah.
changed the cadence up from the very first play.
Yep.
Orlando Brown had about 3 false starts. Joe Burrow was using a hard count about every single play, not
Right.
just on third down. I mean, they were hard counting on first down, right? So much of the game plan was literally to not let not let him not get the sack, but take him out the game,
Take them out of the game, right?
right?
And like
it
find
led-
your
it led to
edge. They
quick
got to find
throws.
their edge, and it's tough to find your edge when the guy's getting off in 0.1 whatever the seconds that's been going around.
I
So
have the
it's just-
numbers for
yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
Please.
the average time for him to cross the line of scrimmage this season was 0.7 seconds. So that's from the snap to when he crosses the line of scrimmage, fastest in the NFL. On that particular sack, it was 0.23. What? I don't even know how we measure that. Like it's like an insane number. And he also faced the most chips and double teams at over 42% on the season. And in that particular game, he faced the third most chips or double teams. So we kind of combined those two numbers together of any player in a game this whole season. So, and by the way, he's also the number 2 player for number of faced chips or double teams. So, so yes, he's doing it under crazy circumstances. I love that you brought up the amount of, because that was one of the stats I had too. It's like, stop with the 17 games. They're never winning. They're never with, I mean, okay, rarely playing with a lead. But I was excited for you because I was like, okay, well, if the Browns defense keeps scoring, then maybe Joe Burrow will have to throw the ball. So I was
Yeah.
like, all right, maybe we will get there, because I was worried at halftime that we weren't going to see it.
Third fewest. The Browns faced the third fewest pass attempts this year. Third
Wow.
fewest. So he's not on a team where everyone's passing against them. They're running the ball. He had the third fewest. And
I would love the
You know-
breakdown too of like a run action versus a drop back, like because I bet a lot of those are, first and second run action plays where they're not dropping back and letting them get off.
well, they were in that right there. They were in tempo because the Bengals had to score. It was the fourth quarter. They had to kind of get into just 2-minute tempo. And Myles Garrett said, I saw the play clock was going down. They've been switching the cadence on me. They've been chipping me. They've been screening everything they could to kind of neutralize him. He said he felt like it was his last and only opportunity. I called the game. He had very few opportunities to get it. He had very few pitches to hit, essentially. And he felt like it was probably his last one. They were on the ball going tempo. He saw the play clock was under 5 seconds. So if they would have hard counted there, he would have been about 10 yards offsides.
Yeah.
But so he just knew with it being under 5 seconds, this has to be the snap. When they say hike, they have to snap at this time. And you saw that's why they get off. He full sended it. Full send.
Yeah.
He sent that Snapchat went through. He did not care about the results. And so it was cool. Some people said Joe Burrow laid down for it. Not the case. He beat him so quick. Joe knew. Tom Brady and them used to get down for sacks.
I was gonna
You
say,
know,
you didn't get split in
inevitable.
half.
Yeah, on that one. So it was true genius. And one last thing I want to share from the production meeting that I haven't told anybody. He says he looked at J.J. Watt. And J.J. Watt, because Myles Garrett has never led the league in sacks before. So as good as he's been, 120 plus sacks, he's never been a sack leader. This is the first year he's done that. And when he looked at the defensive player of the years, J.J. Watt in particular, he had a 4-year stretch where he went like 20, 17, 10, 20. And Myles Garrett believes that he needs to have a stretch of dominance of leading the league. And he said, this is the beginning of my 4-year, 5-year stretch I'm about to go on. So he's predicting that he is now he's reached a new level and it's only going to go up from here. So I haven't told anyone that, but he wants to have his J.J. Watt run of Defensive Player of the Years, and he'll be a unanimous Defensive Player of the Year this year. I don't know how many of them we have in our history, Cynthia, but if I find a voter doesn't vote for him for Defensive Player of the Year, they got to see me because I don't know who gets to vote for that, but he should be the unanimous Defensive Player of the Year.
I mean, the votes were due Monday. I know that, the January 5th. So there is no world where that doesn't happen. You know, I can't imagine. I don't have a vote, but of the people I know, I did ask when the votes were due, and it was January 5th. So at least I got to see that. So not to say that wouldn't have mattered, but I still think it's fun to have like the cherry on top of that cake. Okay, so Jags are on a heater, right? They've won, what, 8 straight now? Jags on a heater, hosting the Bills. The Bills defense, still, yes, they're the number 1 pass defense in terms of yards surrendered per game, but the run game has been an issue. I saw them activate a very interesting, well, we'll talk about that in a second because I'm curious if you can make this impact. You talk about making an impact in the playoffs, and Matthew Judon is activated. I don't know what's going on there, but perhaps that could create some sort of change. How do you handicap? How do you think through, like, what would it take for the Bills to win and what would it take for the Jags to win, like, simply put?
Well, I'll start. Man, the Jags are hot and they're good, and a lot of people like them. Playoff football, in my opinion, comes down to who makes the fewest mistakes and then who makes the plays when it matters. And I think I like the Bills' ability to run the ball this year with James Cook. He has always been good, but now he's valued as being really good. You know, he got paid and he's had his best year. So I like the balance that the Bills have. And I just trust if it comes down to a 2-3 possession game in the 4th quarter and Josh Allen gets the ball twice and Trevor Lawrence gets the ball twice, that Josh Allen will get it done. So if the game is close, I'm going with the Bills. If the Jags run them off the field, which I don't think they will, but close game, I'm going to go with the Bills and Josh Allen's experience have the ball down the stretch. It comes down to that a lot in the playoffs because all teams are good. Both coaches are good. Both schemes are good. It's what players can make plays down the stretch. Josh Allen has the most experience.
Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think Josh Allen, I think he mentally is getting ready for these playoffs. Like, hey, I have to take this thing over. And I think you're going to see that Saturday. I think it'll be a tight game, but at the end of the day, when he's got the ball at the end of the game, he's going to make a play for their team and win. I think Buffalo gets this one. And you know, it's going to take a super effort from him throughout the entire playoffs to keep advancing. But, you know, I think looking at the quarterback slate this year in the playoffs, if I had to pick one quarterback, that's who I'm picking,
100%.
you know, to make a run at it. So,
Yeah, I'm looking at this game, and I just feel like low key the Jags defense. So we've been talking about, you know, since the acquisition of Jacoby Myers, how the passing game has improved in Trevor Lawrence. Absolutely, all of that stuff is not only true, but it's also very fair. But the thing that I'm looking at on the other side, like the Jags defense maybe isn't getting enough credit for stopping the run, which they have done very, very well. They don't miss tackles in the run game very often. And they've also created turnovers at a higher rate than you might think. I mean, we talk about the Bears, but the Jags are very close to them in terms of interceptions. So when you're looking at, like, I just think this one it's all about who can keep it clean. So because we've seen Trevor Lawrence he's been playing great since Jacoby Myers was there, but we've seen the beginning of the season. It was not a passing game that you're like, this is dangerous. It didn't look like that to begin with. And I think both run games are both very strong, but it's going to take every bag of tricks, I think, that Liam Cohen has in his arsenal to be able to outmatch whatever Josh Allen can put up. So I'm not saying that the Bills defense is going to come out here and shut down the run and just totally look different. I just think Josh Allen's going to outscore the Jags, with the caveat that if they keep turning if they have 2 turnovers, Josh Allen could have the Bills could have 1 turnover and still be okay. But if they get more than 2, then I think it's curtains.
Yeah, and that's how the Jags win, though. The Jags win by running
Yep.
the ball. Run the ball for 2 reasons, right? To move it on the Bills, but to keep Josh Allen on the bench. If I'm the Bills, you're going to score on me, score quick. The more touches Josh Allen has, the best chance you have to win. So if the Jags do win this game, it's because of Leah Cohen, that running scheme. They're running for first downs. They're converting third downs. They're keeping Josh Allen on the bench. They make it a shorter game, less touches for Josh Allen. Try to win in an ugly one. That's what I would do if I'm the Jags. Run the ball, bleed the clock. 40 seconds of play, right? As opposed, you throw it around, you give too much clock on the other guys. You shorten the game when you have another quarterback like that on the other side. That's got to be the Jags' game plan. If they're able to run the ball, keep the ball away from Josh Allen, then that's their best chances to win. But if I'm the Bills, hey, I'm stopping the run. You throw it over my head, At least I get the ball back to Josh Allen quicker
Yep.
for him to have more time to do it, what he's got to do.
Okay, so let's look at the Chargers and the Patriots. Zach, I have to ask you this one because I'm going to start with you because I kind of think I know maybe where Logan's going. But did you see the Chargers O-line? Because I actually haven't. I've watched all their games, and I'm not sure it exists. I'm very concerned about Justin Herbert going into. Obviously, last week they didn't play Justin Herbert. They rested him. He's the hand, everything, but he's taken the most hits. He's been under the most pressure. This is a guy who, I mean, it's a bananas amount of hits that he has taken this season, and I'm curious if that's a sustainable model for even one game in the playoffs, or do you think that that's just going to be like, even with some of the other great pieces that they have? I mean, with Justin Herbert, is this O-line going to just hamstring them too much?
Yeah, the Chargers to me are like the biggest what if team in the NFL this year because I truly believe if they had the 2 tackles, I know every team can do a what if game on injuries and all that, but if the Chargers had the 2 tackles, I think they're a legit contender. But their O-line is just, they've struggled, and we've seen it. He's been getting clobbered back there, and we talked Superman for Josh Allen. Herbert's going to have to do that and then some, I think, just because of the protection, honestly. And it's, they're not just playing backups. They're playing, 3rd, 4th string tackles. They've gone through a couple different guards. They've got a lot of guys who haven't played a lot of football. And I think we talk about coaching and not say Harbaugh is just hamstrung because of some injuries, but I think Vrabel and that defense get an edge on the pass rush, and they figure out a way to heat up Herbert with 4 and then also bring a different pressure to get him off his
They also
spot.
quietly got Milton Williams back, which is like,
Love it.
kind of a massive deal
Huge.
considering that they,
Massive,
like he was their
massive.
like massive free agent acquisition and was playing so well before.
Well, especially if you have to think about someone playing on the interior, then you're leaving those tackles, and those tackles aren't going to be able to hold up one-on-one throughout the whole game. So you just got, again, we talk about game plan, and Chargers are going to have to come up with creative ways to chip and double team and give Justin Herbert enough time to get the ball down the field.
Look, there's no layups in the playoffs by any means, but this is the closest one, in my opinion. The Patriots, it's about matchups. This is such a favorable matchup for the Patriots. 1, they're at home. Chargers got to fly across the country, colder weather. 2, okay, the Patriots have great corners, great corners, right? And the Chargers receivers, possession receivers, Lab McConkey, Keenan Allen, great route runners, but you have great square corners that can cover that stuff. The Chargers can't pass protect too well. The Patriots don't have elite pass rushers, but they can still manufacture a rush against that O-line. That's going to be problems for the Chargers to score points. On the other side, the Chargers are okay zone defense. Drake May picks that apart. You got to bring pressure on Drake May and man up. The Chargers don't play that style. Denver, much more of an issue for New England. Chargers, not an issue for New England. So in my opinion, the only downside is the Patriots are dealing with some distractions. Call them what you want, the off-the-field stuff, that is a distraction because you have to answer about a teammate. You can't speak on it. We don't have the details of it. We don't know anything
They
about
don't
it.
know? Right.
Right. So you kind of get disturbed by that at times. I think Mike Vrabel does a good job of managing distractions. Always seems like New England got some distractions going on. When I was there, we had a bunch of distractions going on. But I think Mike Vrabel is the right man to handle that. So to me, I'm not always going to say it's comfortable, but New England handles business. We move on, survive and advance. It's a favorable matchup for New England.
The two things that the Drake made points that I found that I thought was maybe underreported, just because we're talking about MVP races and
There you
stuff, and
go.
it's between
Break
him
some
and Matthew
news.
Stafford. So it's interesting to me that he has the highest yard per attempt average against both man and zone. It just usually doesn't happen that way. That you have such a big advantage over kind of like these deep passes in both configurations. Just doesn't usually happen like that. And against zone specifically, he's got the highest EPA, so expected points added per drop back. It's like almost 0.3, which is a very high number. Think of 0.2 as being high, and so now you're 50% higher than that. It's pretty crazy. So, and I also my like low key prediction for this one is the Hunter Henry revenge game. I just think we see, look,
Ah, well,
like sometimes you have to find a positive
I didn't think
narrative
about
in
that.
something. In the same way, stopping Myles Garrett was probably an incentive for the Bengals offense to stay focused. Hunter Henry, this is forward team. They're now in the playoffs. He's the Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. I think we see, he's been one of Drake May's favorite targets. So that's just my like fun, stupid, nonsensical, non-math,
nah,
but I
revenge
think a
game
little fun.
matters. Revenge games always help a little bit. Yeah, I like
Why
that.
not? You got to sometimes you have to manufacture a narrative. Let's find one. Okay, last one in the AFC, Texans and Steelers, the Monday nighter. This is an interesting matchup. Texans on the road. What a game. What a finish for game 272 between the Ravens and the Steelers. I
Oh,
mean, the
wow.
swings in that game, like the emotional, you didn't even need to watch the first three quarters. You could just watch the fourth quarter and be like, all right,
Right.
here's everything I need in the game. The condensed.
The last 5 minutes.
Exactly. So, I mean, look, we love the Houston Texans defense. We have all said that TJ Watt is back, Aaron Rodgers, the playoff experience is absolutely there. The, multiple MVPs. Like, what are you looking for in this one?
Yeah, I'd say, Zach, that, that is why you pay the quarterbacks, right? Because you saw what Aaron Rodgers did in that game. He did what he had to do, right, to get the Steelers in the playoffs. And Lamar Jackson did what he had to do. And it came down to the kickers. But you could see when it comes down to it, how tight the game is. You don't even need to watch the first three quarters. It comes down to the fourth. And that's why he's there. And that's why I'm saying if things are close, I usually lean to the more experienced coach and quarterback. I don't think the Texans keep it as close. I think the Texans have been dominant. I think their defense is going to give Pittsburgh problems with their rush. Aaron Rodgers isn't extremely mobile at this age. He's going to get the ball out quickly, but the Texans have some really good corners that don't let receivers get open quickly. So I think that the Texans find a way to stay ahead enough where Aaron Rodgers can't make it a miracle down the stretch by any means or make it happen down the stretch. So I have the Texans handling it because of their balance on offense and defense, but really their defensive dominance just not allowing the Steelers. I know DK Metcalf is back. I understand that, but I still don't think the Steelers can manufacture enough points to beat the Texans.
No, I don't either, and I don't think they have time to push the ball down the field. We've seen a lot of times this year Steelers kind of dink and dunk, and if you haven't watched the Houston defense, that's not going to fly with the Houston defense. How they fly around the field and attack the football. So I just see as long as Houston can score early, I just see their defense being overwhelming and not allowing Rodgers to do his thing. I mean that pass rush, that pass rush is as good as anyone in the NFL, and with how they swarm as a unit and what Ryan's got going down there, it reminds me a lot of those San Fran teams from a few years back where you got 11 guys with their heads on fire running around.
So here are areas where the defense ranks no worse than fifth best. You ready? So their pass rushing duo of Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter, they're actually number one in terms of duos for pressures. On third down specifically, Will Anderson Jr. has 48 pressures. That's the most since Next Gen Stats been able to track that. And that's just on third down. Okay. Then you have Azeez Al-Shaair, his off-ball stuff. So his interceptions, his passes, defense. Like he's top, I think it's 3 or 4. I can't remember the exact number, but yeah, top 5, no less than top 5. And then you also, oh, by the way, he also leads the team in run stops, which doesn't often happen that both have. So he's their Fred Warner, obviously, right?
Exactly.
And then you're looking at their corners. Jalen Petrie, in terms of when he's defending receivers lined up in the slot, lowest completion percentage allowed. And I haven't even gotten to Derek Stingley Jr., who don't target them. Like, don't. Like, you just don't have a good opportunity to do so. I don't care that DK Metcalf is back. I think, if you're looking at like the opportunity for him to catch like 4 passes or something, maybe. But I don't think, because I think they'll want to do a make good and they'll try to, again, a narrative there. But I don't think it's going to be enough to, that defense is nothing to mess with. So as good as you'll see those quick passes near right, Aaron Rodgers, this is the fastest release. He's like the Tua Tagovailoa in terms of quick release this year. And it works for some things, but not when you have the second and third level, kind of backing it up the same way these two teams do. So I think we're all aligned on that one. Do you think there's any way? I haven't seen a 10-point favorite in the playoffs in a while, but the Rams and Panthers, a 10-point road favorite. The Rams are big favorites in Carolina. Remember, they dropped a game to Carolina back earlier in the season. I think it was week 13. The interceptions were the problem there. Can the Panthers upset the Rams at home? Let's start with you, Zach.
Yeah, I don't think they upset them. I think they can keep it closer than 10 points. So 10 points is crazy for a playoff game, and the Panthers beat them, a month ago. But I do think, that was Stafford's worst game of the year. He comes back, he gets all of his weapons healthy heading into the playoffs, and I think they take care of business in that first round for sure.
Yeah, no, they can't. Devontae Adams is back, and we know the cheat code that is in the red zone, and J.C. Horn can only cover one of them. So I don't know the Panthers' other corner, but listen, brother, drink some pickle juice, get some good sleep. It's coming because Puka Nacua is the best receiver in football. Devontae Adams may be the best route runner, and that is tough when you get in the red zone having to cover one of those two. So I think that the Rams, they didn't want to end the year this way by any means, but I do know they always look ahead and prepare for the playoffs. I don't agree with every coach resting starters. Like, I don't agree with the Eagles doing that, but I understand what Sean McVay is doing. He can do that. Not everyone can just do that. Matt Stafford and them know how to turn it on. I played against it. I know it. And they're completely comfortable and confident with this matchup. And they did this on purpose to get this matchup. So, yeah, I really think that I don't know about 10, but it's going to be comfortably the Rams.
The other corner's name is Mike Jackson. Not
Oh,
Michael.
I know Mike Jackson. Yeah, he's
Mike
having a good year.
Jackson.
Oh, Mike from Miami. Yeah,
He's
I
having a
think
good
I
year.
think
No
Cowboys drafted
shade.
him.
No shade.
It's
just
not
a
a
tough,
shade. I just
it's like
the
the
name.
tackles having to go against the Texans rusher. It's just a tough day at the office.
Tough day at that. So, okay. I think
Tough day.
that one to me feels like, yeah, it's smart to, and look, there's a difference between resting Matthew Stafford and Devontae Adams, who have eons of experience in the playoffs compared to some of the other people, as opposed to some, I know Puka Nacua, all of them have a lot of experience. There's a difference between that and resting a second year guy. It's just a very, obviously a different thing. And by the way, our producer Ben was like, pickle juice. Obviously pickle juice, because that is how you preserve your hydration. That is what happens when you get dehydrated. They give you pickle juice, right?
Electrolytes.
Electrolytes. Yeah.
Yeah, when you sweat, this is why it's pickle juice. Let's get in there real quick. When you sweat, you lose salt, right? We lose salt when you sweat. You can't always replace it with water. So that's why you have electrolytes, but that's what the pickle juice is. The sodium's so high, it helps you retain the water better.
Yep.
So you cramp less.
Also good for hangovers, just in case anyone was wondering. Okay, these next two I find to be the most, I'm going to say that the ones that I had the hardest time, like I went through my model a lot. The first for different reasons. So Packers Bears first. So it's in Chicago. It's the rubber match. They have each won this season. We've seen obviously no Micah Parsons for the Packers. This is the hard part for me. I don't know. We saw Josh Jacobs play, but like often in games this past month, he'll play like the first quarter and then like stop playing. So I'm just a little confused. Obviously, you get Jordan Love back. You're not going to have Clayton Tune. I'm no shade to Clayton Tune, but that was a kind of a weird game. But that's the question. So how are you calling this one? And I'm going to point out the thing that I'll tell you the thing that nails me, but This defense for the Bears, the most interceptions, but they're turnover dependent, and we saw that against the Lions. So, okay, what are you guys doing? Logan, you go first.
So this playoff's gonna have the most upsets or lower seeds winning in history, I think. And I think the Packers win this one. And the Bears have been turnover dependent. My boy Kevin Byard, that's my dog,
That's your
leading the
guy.
league again. I don't know how he's doing it at this age. We got to
Pickle
start talking
juice.
about
He's doing
him
it
and
because of
Aaron.
pickle
Yeah,
juice.
experience matters in the playoffs. I think that the Packers, if Jordan Love takes care of the ball, I think they can get it done here. The Bears have been a great story. They've won a lot of tight games, but every time these two teams play, it seems like it comes down to the last play. It seemed like it really comes down to the last play. The one was an interception on the last play. When the Packers won, the other one was onside kicks and all crazy stuff happening. So clearly they're evenly matched. They're clearly evenly matched. Can the Bears handle all the praise they've been hearing? The 2 seed, the pressure that comes with that. Can they handle all the ego stroking they've been getting and come out and perform? Because every time they play the Packers, it has been as evenly matched. I don't care who you are, what pundit you are, it's a coin flip. And I'm going to go with LaFleur and Jordan Love being together a little bit longer. And Josh Jacobs, I think, is a big difference maker. They have the best running back in the matchup. To find a way to win a game is probably going to come down to the last series.
I mean, I think it all comes down to can Chicago find a way to stop the run at all? I mean, you see them, they've got a bunch of creativity in offense. They score points, but when they have had rough games and they haven't been getting those turnovers, they can't stop the run and they get in trouble. So that's going to be the big thing for me. Can they figure a way to stop Josh Jacobs in the run? But I do think when I think back of the Packers Bears game, Caleb Williams spent a lot of time running away from Micah Parsons, and he's not going to be on that field. So I do think Chicago has an advantage with their front on offense that I think can take them and get the job done on Saturday night. So I'm going to go with Chicago, but contingent on stopping the run.
Okay, you know what's wild is these two have matched up the most of any franchises, so like over 200 times. But do you know that they've only matched up in the playoffs twice ever, which is bananas, and only once since 1950, and the Packers won that one. I just thought that history was
Yeah, that's crazy.
crazy considering how often these two have played. But I mean, wow. And that was like Aaron Rodgers and like a Jay Cutler team, and Aaron Rodgers won. It was anyway. So fun stuff from that. But I, to me, the injury report is going to dictate this one and the real one, because I always say, and I say this out of love, and I know he doesn't actually care, but I call Kyle Shanahan a lying liar who lies. And all of the guys who are in his coaching tree are also lying liars who lie. So even if we hear that Josh Jacobs is 100% good to go, until I see it, I'm not entirely sure that that's going to be the truth. I mean, Kyle Shanahan famously said, "We don't know if we're going to be here Sunday." So, he's not lying, but it's a joke. But I have the Bears slightly losing, like slightly behind. So the Packers with an edge, and that's with an asterisk that Josh Jacobs is actually okay, which again, we don't know. It's the simulated pressures that Halfley was able to use last season. I think those come back in this one and scare Caleb Williams enough, because I don't know if the picture will be clear enough for him. And this is a guy with a 58% completion percentage on the season. It ranks 34th of the 36 qualified quarterbacks. So that's what my model like does not like inconsistent passing. So that is where the difference is. Whereas Jordan Love, despite having, an injury for a concussion is not the same as like a shoulder or something like that, right? Like, so, his results this year have been more consistent in the passing game, despite a passing core that's interesting. Anyways, so that's where that one is where mine lies. Now, this last one, Niners and Eagles. This is where we were going to go to our O-line expert on this one, because I thought we were getting Lane Johnson back. We didn't see Lane Johnson play. That was a healthy scratch, but okay. Trent Williams didn't play, and the Niners it was problematic against the Seahawks. I don't know why. Like, this is an interesting one, because it's wild to me to be a 3.5 point underdog on the road. I know 3 is probably a normal amount, but like a little more after being potentially the 1 seed, I was expecting like a 1.5 or a 2 point spread, not 3.5 points. Like, that's bananas. So, O-line expert, tell me about the trenches in this one. What am I looking at?
I think it comes down to just kind of what I said about Chicago. Can Sam Fran find a way to stop the run? Like I was drinking the Sam Fran Kool-Aid after that Monday night game against the Colts. I thought they were going to go into Seattle and win, and of course they go and kind of lay an egg. So again, it comes down, can they figure out a way to stop the run? You're going to need Trent Williams out there. You have to have him out there. You can't go in this game without him. I mean, I would say the same thing about Lane Johnson. He's been out for half the year, so yes, he is a perk to have. But I think if you had to pick one or the other, Sam Fran needs Trent Williams. You can tell when he's not out there. So they need him. They need to run the foot. I mean, their offense can do it all. I got no issues with Sam Fran's offense, but I think it comes down to, can they stop the run, which has not been the best thing for Philly. Now they have gotten it going in recent weeks. I think we've seen Saquon's carries and yards go up in recent weeks, and I think for that reason alone, I'm going to give it to Philly at home with the edge. I don't like how they rested their starters.
Mhm.
If we're going to talk about that, I've never been a fan of that. I just think even when you have a bye, I've had a year where we had a bye into the playoffs, and I felt off going into the game, not playing for a week. So there's certain exceptions to that rule. Obviously, if you got a veteran who's super banged up and he could benefit from a week, but to pull everyone, especially with a lot of the young guys on defense, you got to keep those guys hungry and keep those guys. Even 1 week, I don't know if you've ever felt this, Logan, but even 1 week off, like my game shape, I even felt like it took me a little bit longer in the game to get in my rhythm. So all of that stuff, I don't like that they sat their starters.
Yeah, Zach, I said on this podcast, playing off the bye week is the hardest round of the playoffs. When you've been in it a bunch, that was
Yeah.
the hardest round for
Oh,
us as the Patriots. Get a first round bye, we play the Ravens in a divisional, and they smack us in the mouth for 2, 3 quarters, and we got to adjust and
yep.
figure out. And they're a 6 seed or 7 seed because you're playing a team that's coming off of a win with momentum. Now, the Eagles don't agree with that, but the Niners are banged up and they got to go across the country. So
Yeah.
I'll give insight on this one. When I signed to the Niners in 23 or 22, whatever it was, they came off of the win in Philly when they beat Philly in the regular season, really
Yeah.
bad, right? And they feel as if they would have beat Philly in the NFC Championship game if Purdy didn't get hurt, obviously, right? That's way back field, coulda, woulda, shouldas, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Long story short, the Niners feel comfortable playing Philly. They feel comfortable playing Jalen Hurts. They believe they have a game plan rush that works well against Jalen Hurts. Not a matchup they were never worried about. It looked like we were going to play Philly in the NFC Championship a few years ago, and it ended up being the Lions, right? Philly got knocked out. Obviously, the Eagles go to the Super Bowl last year and get it done. So this is the game of the playoffs to me. This can go truly either way. The Niners were a win away from being the 1 seed and looking like the favorites to win the Super Bowl at home, and now they got to go to Philly a few weeks later. I think their offense will be better. I think Trent's going. I think all of them that can go will go, and I think they're saving for this one. They understand what it is, and Philly's inconsistency all year, I think, is going to catch up to them. I just don't think you're just going to get Saquon going. And Saquon's my boy. I play with Saquon and I play with Christian. So I'm so torn from my loyalties plus my insight on this one. This is going to be tough. I don't know how San Fran defends the wide receivers of the Eagles, but it's not like everyone has been hot on the Eagles all. And I just think the inconsistency of the Eagles this year catches up to them in this one. I think San Fran ekes out a close one. I think Christian McCaffrey versus Saquon Barkley. That's what it truly comes down to. I think they'll both have great games, but I think San Fran pulls it off. I don't know if San Fran go all the way, being a lower seed,
Yeah, I just think,
but I do
yeah,
think
defensively,
I d
the run defense for San Fran just scares
it
me.
does. It truly does. There is a difference without Fred Warner out there. There's a
Well,
difference
Fred
without
could
Yeah.
both
come
out there.
back for the NFC Championship game, should they?
I keep hearing
I
it every
believe
week.
those rumors.
It moves up every week with Fred. I'm not surprised by it, but every single week, he could be coming back next week. If it goes to overtime, he might be in there. I don't know. But yeah, Fred wants to go, so I think they
Oh,
gotta
it's not
get
a
it to
question of
Fred.
want, right?
Imma go with the Niners. I would not be surprised either way. It's my least confident pick so far, but this is a true matchup. This look like could be your NFC Championship game. You're getting it in the wild card, which is insane.
I'm looking at this game and the O-line stuff, like the health of the O-line is really a huge factor. Obviously, the Niners have not brought consistent pressure. They're missing a Bosa. We get it. No Fred Warner. We talk about all those injuries. To me, it really comes down to, can they come up with just enough juice for Christian McCaffrey to be able to outmatch the Eagles? And you almost saw him do it, but for a tipped pass that was not Christian McCaffrey's fault. It was a tipped pass, and he maybe could have hauled it in, but that would have been a crazy, crazy, crazy catch. Then you would have seen it in the Seahawks game. So that to me is this one is about like 51%, 49% for me. And the Eagles just have the slight advantage because of the amount of injuries to the Niners that it's very hard to imagine. I don't feel confident in that at all. 51% is a coin flip. I'm forced to pick a team. Could I pick a tie? No.
Right. I agree. It is that tight. It's going to be a great one. I'm tuned into this one. I will say the Niners have a Jalen Rush game plan,
Oh,
or
I'm
game
sure.
plan rush for Jalen Hurts.
I
Now
am
you will see that
certain.
they feel confident of a defense that works well for Jalen Hurts. You can look at the numbers when the Niners play Jalen Hurts, but I will say I won't leak what that is, but they do feel confident in that. Do they have enough to win it based on their injuries? I don't know, but I know
Right.
defensively they have a good game plan for Jalen Hurts.
So next week when we see it on tape, then you can tell us what it was, huh?
I got you. Yep.
Okay,
I'll break it
perfect.
down after. And they better do it. I mean, you can have a
They will.
plan
Yeah.
until you get punched in the face. So
Right.
don't make me look too bad. They have a good plan. They got to execute the plan, but they've executed in the past. Usually Bosa and Warner are out there to do it though.
Yeah.
But let's see if they can let's see if they can do it
It's a
without them.
terrible matchup for the Eagles. Like, I mean, it's not a good draw for the Eagles. The Eagles messed themselves up by
Oh,
not.
yeah. The draw.
It's
I
a
mean,
Yeah.
not
terrible
playing
draw
your
for them.
starters when you have something to gain I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. It's not like you need 3 different things. It's like
No.
if Chicago loses and you win, you got
And
2
that would have
seed.
happened. I mean,
And even playing off of a win matters. Even losing, even if we didn't play our starters. Well, you still play like 60, 70% of them, right?
right.
So even just losing and then being like, "Oh, we're gonna, turn it around and our stars will go." To me, I just feel like you always wanna go in off of a win, if you could, and I think the Eagles needed rhythm. They haven't had rhythm all year.
Yeah.
This is where as my I like to make fun of Eagles fans for being loud. And they've been very loud about their offensive coordinator all season long. They hate Kevin Patullo. We get it. This is where we'll really see what the decision making is going on behind the scenes. And I don't know if it's Patullo or I don't know who to assign blame to. I don't work there, but the Eagles fans are loud, but you have seen a lack of rhythm, and you've seen a lack of a strategy that feels like it complements the best psychology notes out there. Because talk about rhythm, it's one thing to rest Lane Johnson last week
Right.
because he's been banged up. It's another thing to now you're playing with a whole bunch of people and things seem very confusing, and you just got a whole uh, w- watching the game. I'm like, who is that? Was that block supposed to happen? What's going on? And it's just too much confusion. So I don't know. I don't know what I think about the Eagles this year. They're certainly not the way I feel about the Eagles last year. They could easily hamstring themselves with some terrible play calling as well. So that is another fact. I don't know, but I've seen it in games this year. So I wouldn't say that about Kyle Shanahan's not doing that. It's not happening for
Right.
the Niners aren't going to hamstring themselves by calling terrible plays. The Eagles could.
We talk about it, Cynthia, on the show a lot. The theme this season, it's not always 11 on 11, it's 12 on 12. So it's Patula, the coaches, and the players. Patula calling plays versus Saleh, and then you have Kyle Shanahan versus Vic Fangio, which should be in the Hall of Fame of play calling on both sides. So
Vic
it's
Fangio is great,
you
but
know that Eagles
he doesn't
defense,
call their offense. So
right? But it's Patula calling plays versus Saleh, which has the biggest impact in a sport than any other sports because every play is called
yep.
before the snap.
Yep. So, anyways, this one's interesting. Okay, so let's do one prediction each before we get out of here for wild card weekend. Listen, first off, we have to decide, is wild card or divisional round the better weekend?
Divisional round's a better weekend, in my opinion. There's more games but when you expanded the playoffs, you got some teams in there that I don't say have no business, but
Carolina doesn't even have a winning record, but they would be in
right,
no matter what.
so when you made it so many more teams doesn't mean it's always better football. So I really like the divisional because when you play in a divisional, you have that taste of we can get to the championship game, and that you know how close that is. So I think the divisional is where you really get your cream of the crop. The wild card, you got some games in there where you got some 10-point spreads in the wild card. Put it like that.
Well, since I've only had a taste ever in my life, I guess I got to juice up the divisional round, and yeah, the divisional round's where it's at. Yeah, yeah.
As a fan, I feel like I kind of like wild card weekend better only because I know the divisional round's still looming. So it's like, okay, like we get a whole bunch of fun games this weekend, and we still get next weekend. My only problem,
You get two full weekends of games.
yeah, my only
Yeah.
problem with the divisional round is like there's like not as many games the next weekend, even though they're theoretically better. But I like to, I don't know, I like a dessert person, right? I was like, may still have my dessert waiting for me.
More and more.
It's still
Yeah.
there. All right, what's your prediction for this weekend? Anything from any game, anywhere?
I will say Chicago will outgain the Green Bay Packers on the ground on the way to a win.
I'm, go-
It's got to happen for
I'm
them to
going
win.
with some low-hanging fruit here, but Devontae Adams comes back, gets 2 touchdowns against the Panthers. I think they rest him strategically, and I think you'll see why the Rams are my NFC favorites, because him coming back, you're going to see the difference when these veterans come back and play and what the plan was with him this past few weeks.
Okay. I'm going to go with a Texans one. I think we see CJ Stroud throw for 2 touchdowns against the Steelers. And I only say that because I've been spending a lot of time looking at this Houston offense. And of course, they rested Nico Collins last week strategically. So I'm curious to see what they've been hiding. Like what are they going to show us, right? What are we going to see from Houston against the Steelers? And we saw how Lamar Jackson had a bunch of busted coverages that he was able to take advantage of. And I want to see CJ Stroud take that step forward. But 2 passing touchdowns, not really something. He hasn't thrown like a bunch of passing touchdowns this year. So I feel like it's at least spicy enough to be considered not just like Houston wins.
Yeah, I see it. I see that. I mean, look, CJ Stroud's going to have to play well. I think
Yeah.
the Texans have everything they need to be the best team they've had in a while. And I don't think we spoke about them, but I don't think people are giving them serious Super Bowl shot. But
No.
we talk about how the AFC is wide open. And if CJ Stroud gets hot and he's passed for 2 touchdowns plus that defense, they're going to be a tough team to beat, right? Can they score enough points to
100%.
win every round?
Yeah.
I don't know, but they're a tough team to beat because of how good their defense is.
Absolutely. Matchups makes for fights so interesting because it's like the way I feel about the Texans is almost the inverse of the way I feel about the Bills, right? Where it's like the Bills defense is alive. So maybe this year, maybe we'll get that scenario where it's like, does defense win championships or does an offense sell tickets or is that not true anymore? I don't know. Maybe we'll get that from the AFC because it feels like kind of 2 different configurations there where it's more likely defense will determine who the winner is because there's there's some better defenses, but I don't know. Josh Allen could prove that all wrong, that adage wrong. So, well, thank you guys so much for hanging out. I feel like I'm ready for the wild card round and, we'll be back for the divisional round, of course. And you got to take us out with one more call there. Of course, subscribe to the pod, but, inevitable. We need to do it. It was so good. It was such a, so cool to listen to you two. I was sitting there, like, crowd friend moment, like, cheering me like, what a perfect word. You killed it. You crushed it.
It's inevitable you subscribe to the pod. It's going to be a matter of time, so you might as well just do it today.
I will say I was watching. I had the 4 boxes going, and you were up there, and I heard the call, and I looked at my wife. I was like, I know that. I didn't know you were doing the game, so I was like, I know that voice.
Oh, wow.
And I looked it up and saw you were doing the call.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
I appreciate you tuning in. I'll tell you what, I've never really been I'm always a little nervous to call games. It almost feels like playing in one. But I was like, yo, I gotta start studying what people say on these iconic plays. It's gonna last a long time, so I better make sure I don't stutter on this one. So I'm happy I got it out there cleanly, and we got a win
Nailed
and
it.
we moved on. Usually when you
Nailed
call
it. You
games,
crushed it.
it's normally a win and you move on, Zach. There's not many wins and losses in TV, so
Yeah.
you win it, survive, and
We'll
advance.
take it.